This year, December 1st, I will be celebrating 22 years of successful living with type 1 diabetes. Last week, as I traveled down Highway 400 to my appointment with the endocrinologist, I thought about my parents. I thought about the day that I was diagnosed, December 1st, 1990. I was 14 years old. And just the worry and concern that was on my parents' faces at that time. For some reason, it was just on my mind last week. And so I was just thinking about the concern that parents have for their children and how that never changes. And I saw that same concern a few weeks ago when I injured my foot and ended up being in the hospital for 3 days to be pumped with antibiotics. And I saw that the concern and worry that my parents have for me, it hasn't changed. And as a teenager, I thought that, well, y'all worry too much. You're making a big deal of nothing, so forth and so on, when it came to them worrying about me, worrying about my brothers, worrying about, just simple things at the time. Um, but anyway, simple to me, but major to them. And as I look at my life now as a parent, I look at the day that my daughter was born, or I think back to that day, and I think back to the day that my son was born. I have that same concern, that same worry for my kids that my parents had for me. And it's not until now as a father that I realize that I see it, that I feel it, and that I can relate to it. And it doesn't seem so unnecessary like it did when I was a kid. It's a necessary concern, it's a necessary worry. And now I understand as an adult why my parents felt the way that they felt. Um, and you always wonder, when things go wrong or when things happen to your children. I won't say that you blame yourself, but your mind just automatically goes to different potential or possible scenarios or different ways that you could have avoided something happening, or you could have prevented something from happening to your kids. And it's natural as a parent to feel that way. And if you don't have kids, you'll never understand what I'm saying. You can see it from the outside. You can love your nieces and nephews and friends, children, not children's, but children, as much as you want. But having a child full of you, full of your DNA, a child from your body, fruit of your loins, there's something different about it. Um, and I have that same concern for my kids that my parents had for me. I remember the day that I was diagnosed with diabetes, December 1st, 1990, as I mentioned before. My mom was just torn up. Um, my dad, didn't show as much emotion, but I know that he was dealing with that as well. Um, the first couple of days in the intensive care unit, I spent eating ice and drinking water because that's all I was allowed, being that my blood sugar was 996. It just didn't register that it was a serious issue with me. It just didn't. Um, Spent about a week in the hospital learning a new lifestyle. a life to live with diabetes. Um, I went in on a Saturday. I didn't mourn until Tuesday. I remember it was that afternoon or that evening. I was in my hospital room. Nobody was there but me at the time. And I was on the phone talking to my cousin Daryl, and it just, this overwhelming reality or something just laid on me, and I just started crying. And, it lasted for about an hour. That my old life was over. I had a new life to learn and to live. And this was something that just wasn't going to go away. So I spent an hour just in tears. And that was it. That was the last time I mourned. That was the last time I felt bad about having diabetes. And from there on, I attended Camp Sil-Harris, which is the camp for kids with diabetes. I was a camper for 2 years and counselor in training for 2 years and counselor for a few more years after that. And that was the place where I really learned that living with diabetes is special. All type 1 diabetics are special. Um, and it may sound crazy, but I just looked at it as a gift because I got to meet, interact with so many different people, with the same condition, with the same issue, and we didn't see anything wrong with ourselves. Um, and with that being said, thinking of Camp Sil-Harris, there are several friends on my Facebook friend list there who are friends on Facebook who I met at Camp Sil-Harris and still consider them to be awesome friends. Dima, Jessica Beasley, Sarah Ann Weatherwax, Jessica Hubler, Jimmy Ann Hubler, Chris Boughton, Dustin Holmes, April. Oh man, so many of you all that I remember, and I will never, ever, ever forget. I mean, and I'm just glad that God has blessed my life to know all of you. And I know I may be missing some people. Nurse Jan, who I communicate with every now and then on Facebook, and especially now that football season is in, I'm pretty sure I'll be seeing and hearing more from her. Roll Tide. Um, but it's been a good life, been an awesome life. Life with type 1 diabetes. But back to my original point is just the concern that we parents have for our children. It never dies, it never goes away. And with my most recent issue with the foot injury and all, um, I just remember sitting with my dad, after I got out of the hospital, made it home, and was getting better or whatever. He came up for a day, and he expressed his worry, his concern, and how shaken he was. And just from that conversation, and then of course thinking of how worried my mother was as well, and how concerned she always is about my well-being, it made me think I'm getting older. I mean, 22 years is a long time, but there are people who have lived successfully with it much longer than I have. Not to say that 22 years is like, oh my God, it's a major accomplishment, but I'm getting older. Your body changes. Your body starts to do some weird stuff. You start to feel things in your body that you didn't know could exist in your body. Certain pains hit you, and it's like, wow, I didn't know I had a muscle right there. I didn't know that anything existed in that part of my body to cause pain or whatever. Um, so, I mean, you just wake up in the morning and something hurts, and it's like, I haven't done anything. Uh, that's the part of getting older, and there are major concerns that come along with it. Um, but one thing that I've always prayed is that dealing with diabetes, type 1 diabetes. I pray that I'm the only one that has to do it in his family. I pray that God protects my children from it. Yes, you can live successfully with it, but I want that experience to be mine and only mine. I don't want my kids to ever have to deal with it. So yeah, I worry when my daughter, complains about being thirsty all the time. It's like, oh, okay, what's going on? I mean, there have been times I've checked her blood sugar just because she's used the bathroom too many times in an hour. And when reality sits in, she's just been drinking too much water, too much juice, and too much soda. And the same with my son. All of a sudden he's going to the restroom too many times in an hour. And it's like, all right, let me pay attention to this. You prick a finger, and that's just that same concern that my parents had for me when I was a kid. I have it for my kids. Anything looks weird, anything that goes abnormal, we jump to it. We say, hey, let's get this checked. But anyway, we love our children. Regardless to the path they choose in life, we'll always love them. We'll always have concern. We'll always worry. We'll always worry more about them than they worry about themselves, just as our parents worry more about us than we worry about ourselves. Um, that's just the way it is. But I thank God that I have the parents that I have. I thank God for my children. And I just pray that we all just continue to live long and healthy lives without drama. And I give shouts out to Camp Sir Harris, all of my type 1 diabetic buddies, everybody that's had a tremendous effect on my life and keeping me positive, throughout life, considering that, we live with a chronic illness that we pretty much have forever. And if they come out with a miracle cure, awesome. But our mindsets are that, hey, we're going to take this to the grave, but it won't be the end of us at all. It won't be the end of us at all. So I love all of Camp Sir Harris family, all my homies, all my buddies. Oh man, Stephen Hall. Yes, that's another Facebook buddy from camp. Josh Goolsby, John Mooresmith, man, Chris Hewitt. All of my buddies. I just want to shout out to all of you. I love you. I miss you. At some point, we'll all get together again and just act as though we never grew up. Take care.